Live and direct, live and I take no jive.
Legalize it.
I mean, how much can a koala bear? Koala bear, koala bear. Koala bear. Barry pulls a joint out of his pocket. Bill says, "Great, Barry, a reefer."
Hi, and welcome back. It's another episode of the Koala podcast. And I'm flying down to, well, I'm not flying to Florida because I don't want ICE to pick me up. So I'm on the Zoom to Daniel Locke, who runs a small medical cannabis practice in Florida. And Daniel got in touch with me because his specialty is medical cannabis. And he wanted to talk about the state. I hate using phrases like this, but the state of the market in Florida, because yes, we are talking about markets. Daniel, welcome to the Koala podcast. As you said in the preamble, that you own a very small medical cannabis practice. You've got a couple of doctors or one doctor on your books, and you've been I'm presuming for the last 8 or 9 years muddling your way through the politics that is Florida cannabis, that I'm just beginning to get a migraine just having those words come out of my mouth.
Yes, sir, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Sean. I appreciate it. Yeah, so the Florida market is was set up, in kind of set up kind of a fraud to start with. And we're continuing that fraud, trying to take it right on.
And I think I should open up by saying in this conversation that apart from Texas, everybody in the industry per se wants this to be the next golden goose. Again, I apologize for my English, but they've raped California. They're doing the process in New York, and now Florida is probably the last final big state there can be a gold rush in. Am I correct in that assertion?
You are correct, but in my opinion, they're never going to make it to a gold mine. I mean, we still have access to THCA, so the young kids aren't coming through my door.
Yeah.
Okay. They're not buying cannabis from a dispensary. We know how that works. I'm not going to go into all that. But they're making it. It's just like every state. Okay. We use this thing called medical to get our foot in the door. Once we get our foot in the door, then all of a sudden we're really ramping up to
adult use or recreational, whatever we want to call it.
And listen, don't get me wrong. I'm not opposed to recreational cannabis. None.
Look, I'm a big supporter because I think if everybody started on an even keel, then you'd actually develop a proper medical care sector that is separate, and they can run in tandem and parallel to one another, and both function supporting that patient base and that customer base. We all know it's the same thing, because people like you and I talk about this the whole time, but the politicians can only really see, they can only open the door very slightly with medical cannabis. And of course, in earlier days, that wasn't so, in my book, it wasn't so much of something to worry about because big cannabis companies didn't really exist with huge sums of money to throw around. But that's all changed now, hasn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. And like I said, I'm not opposed to recreation, but what I would like to happen is I'd like to have our grandmothers who decide to use cannabis, which is the fastest growing population. I'd like to have them not end up in the ER because they got advice at a dispensary versus a physician group. And I don't really blame the dispensaries. They're not the ones who should be educating patients. Okay. They created this program in Florida where the doctor has no liability, which is fine. Okay. They take a 2-hour course and now they're all of a sudden medical cannabis physicians.
2-hour course. Are you kidding me?
Course, my friend. Yeah. As long as you got MD or DO after your name, you get to take a 2-hour course and you are now a prescribing medical cannabis physician. And all that means is you just rubber stamped them because they don't know anything about it. My doctor's been working with me for 8 years. His knowledge of cannabis wouldn't fill a thimble.
Well, it's
Neither would
interesting because
yeah,
the authorities have just come down on doctors working for
yeah,
medical cannabis companies in Australia. Literally, I've just reported it today because some of them were prescribing between one guy managed to get out 17,000 prescriptions in a 6 month period, which they worked out was one every 4 minutes, which is pretty impressive work when they're
yeah.
paying them $350 an hour and a bonus per prescription. So I presume he's got a couple of very nice beachside houses now, or she, I should say.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, is that where we're going to head in Florida in the same
so
direction
that's where
on
we
the
are.
medical side?
That's where we are right now. So when a patient comes in, listen, and I don't mean to brag. Let me just be honest. I would love some competitors. I'd love to have 1,000 competitors. I'd love to have people with an advanced education as I do. I'm blessed. Okay. Even though my doctor rubber stamps the patient, many times I spend an hour or 2 hours on the phone teaching them medical cannabis science, teaching them how to properly dose, especially your grandmother and seniors and things like. I don't have to teach anybody how to use cannabis for rest and relaxation. Okay, that's easy.
Yeah.
Okay, we all been doing that for years. But when your grandmother, or let's use my mom for an example, my mom has had rheumatoid arthritis for over 40 years. She quit using pain medication over a decade ago because it quit working. She now takes a 1-to-1 tincture of 50-50 because she never wants to be stoned. So every 6 to 8 hours, she takes 8 milligrams of a 50-50 CBD combined with THC. She never has to feel stoned, and it treats her chronic pain. So the problem is, without proper education to a patient, you're left stuck down at the
Well,
dispensary.
my conversations always end up, whoever
Yeah,
I'm talking to in whatever
yeah,
area of cannabis, it's education.
right.
For in Florida, so you're in this position, you're
Uh-huh.
trying to educate your
Correct.
colleagues and your patients. Is
Right.
there anywhere, are any tertiary institutions actually bothering to create, research hubs and centers that provide information not to other academics, but to the general public and
Mhm.
the general medical profession? And if so, why not? And this is a why not question that's
Okay.
open. That's the same throughout the US. Why is that not written into legislation when legislation is first written? Is that you
Well,
wouldn't
well,
have them? Well, yeah, they did have. I mean, you would have thought they would have learned the lesson from opiates. That people need to be educated, especially the professionals, because
yeah,
most of the professionals are just working within that pharma system. They earn
right.
money if they prescribe X, Y, or Z. Yes.
Right, right. Well, remember, ours started out with JT Burnett, who is, you've probably heard of Trulieve before, right? Well,
Oh,
JT,
yes. Well, I'm going to bring them up in a second.
okay, JT's her husband. Okay, wasn't her husband. They had kids together prior. Didn't become her husband until the feds bugged him and realized he was creating this whole. You had to, in order to apply for a license, you had to be in the plant nursery business for over 30 years. Yeah, he's the brain surgeon behind that. They got that instilled, and that's why he spent 3 years in federal prison.
Is he out?
Now,
Is he out now? Is
yeah,
he?
he is out of prison now. Yep, he's all moving and grooving with
Oh,
his
so
construction
he's
stuff,
the
and
silent partner because she's fairly upfront and he's more silent.
he's not even silent. According to what you read, he has no connection with the
No, well,
cannabis
yes, I've
industry
heard that
whatsoever.
one before.
But he does own 10% of a construction company. It's named after him. Now,
Uh-huh.
really, does that make any logical sense? So why would you own a construct? Who in the world would let you be a 10% owner and have the place named after you? That
Yeah.
already tells you he's probably don't. Now this is assumption, okay? He's probably doing some federal programs that requires a minority or something to be involved. He's probably diving in on some of that action because if you look at his background, he's I
Well,
don't
this
trust
this
him.
this sort of leads to the question:
Sure.
is cannabis completely embroiled in uh, that Florida politics that we know so well has been around a long time, but
Yeah.
has gone into hyper speed due to, well, due to state politics and
Oh,
the current president now basing himself in Florida. So that thinking
yeah.
must be rife through the state. And has that just overtaken everything? And cannabis is just part of that whole process now.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And listen, you know why I speak out? I'm a disabled veteran. They ain't gonna do anything to me. I'm a one-man disabled veteran. Put me out of business, whatever. Do what you got to do. I'm gonna survive. But I speak because I have a lot of veterans that are patients. Okay. And the problem is this: if we don't get the education piece involved, then patients are never going to have real success with cannabis. So what's eventually going to happen? They're still competing with the black market. Now they've grown the gray market exponentially, okay, but they're still competing with the black market, and they're never going to win. I mean, my God, I've been using cannabis for
Well, I mean, I
decades.
think what doubly annoys me about this, and there's so much confusion, and we'll try and
Sure.
create, but it's those same politicians who use veterans as their modus operandi for making legislation work that creates money for
Right.
themselves or their associates, leaving the veterans behind in
Yeah.
the process. And
Exactly.
nobody seems, as far as I can be aware,
Yeah.
this thank you for your service language that
Yeah.
means nothing. I mean, look, I've lived
Exactly.
in the States and I've heard that language, and it makes me angry every time. I never understand why the veteran who's having that said to them doesn't, it's American manners, doesn't explode with anger every time that is said to them by that sort of person, because
Yeah.
it's a non comment.
Right.
It's designed to make the person saying it feel better, isn't it?
Right. Well, yeah, absolutely. Here's my theory. Okay. I have reached out to numerous politicians, numerous politicians. I get avoided. I can't get a conversation. Even the mayor of our city, Donna Deegan, blew me off. I've met with Kimberly Daniels. I had this conversation with her. She's our state representative. And by the way, she's the one I'll be running against next year for her seat. Okay. I'm just because, here's the thing. I can have conversations with people, like you, but if I get to go knock on the doors, okay, and explain to people what's really going on, especially the minority community, people don't realize. So what they did last time, what they did when they were trying to go rec last time, is they had paid people, minorities, for medical marijuana, going around and passing out yes on 3 fans. And basically they put it in the minds of minorities that if this goes recreational, they don't have to worry about going to jail anymore. They put it in their minds. They think recreational and decriminalization are synonymous. If you know the states, if you go anywhere north of Orlando, Daytona, I'm in the Panhandle area. I'm in North Florida. Okay, anywhere in the Panhandle, if you get pulled over for cannabis, the officer gets to decide if you go to jail or not. So if you're a minority, guess where you're going?
Well, the odds are
You're
against
going
you.
to jail. Okay. So the district I'm running in is predominantly black district. So even if I lose, I'm going to win because I'm going to get across to them that, listen, you're not safe out there. You're not safe. I've had 5 medical cannabis patients this year alone go to jail. They had one thing in common. They were all young black men.
Of course.
Okay. So that's, what I'm going to get across. So even if I don't win the election, I'm going to get out what I want to get out. Okay.
For you, the only avenue open now is politics.
Is run for office. Yes, sir.
Running for office there is no other way to get the message through
No,
to people.
I've met with local representatives, city council folks. I've met with, I even met with the John Rutherford, who's our congressman up in DC. I met with him when I was in school in Maryland. I got to sit down with John Rutherford. So nobody wants to speak about it because they don't comprehend it all. So what's going to end up happening is if we go rec before we get things lined up properly, there will never be any medical cannabis and they will all fail. Because let's face it, the more and more people, I mean, their last big hurrah was to try to get, hemp made illegal. Okay. That would have been a big help for them. Okay. Because that would have taken the younger generation from buying THCA online. That would have taken them, kind of forced them to have to go in their direction. But now they got a new bill coming out this year. Last year, the bill in 2024, the bill failed. Mainly, they believe because it didn't exclude people from being able to smoke flower outdoors. Okay. And in Florida, that is kind of a big deal. I mean, you don't want to bring your kids over to Disney World.
Yeah, no, it's the same. That's the same. Unfortunately,
this time they
unfortunately, you have to
included
legislate for common sense in this day and age, don't you?
Absolutely. Yeah. And this time, this new bill that they're putting out this time includes vaping. Well, guess what? You know who that messes with? You've heard of the demographic as the suburban housewives. They're all going, go F yourself. You know what? Because I'm going to a concert and I'm taking my vape. If I have to go to jail over that, you're not getting my vote. So they don't even know the people. That's the good thing about it.
So, I mean, in the Florida legislature, what importance do the legislators apply to cannabis at the moment in terms
They're afraid of it. They're afraid of it. If I say nothing, then I can't be on the wrong side of anything. Okay. And let's face it. I mean, not everybody what's the numbers now? 18% of people utilize cannabis on a regular basis. That's not a ton of folks. Okay. So that's my opinion. That's why I think they're going in that, why they keep staying in this direction. And where it got us here, it was cannabis tourism. Yeah, all these knuckleheads they became gazillionaires in Colorado and California because those of us who never bought legal cannabis before were flying out there just for the experience.
Well, so exactly right. I mean, any of those states that border, prohibited states. It's classic old alcohol stuff. All the money's been made on the borders, and little border towns. Very, a lot of money, get them in and out and make lots of money as quickly as possible. I mean, Florida and Texas, they're sort of fairly close geographically, and politically they're sort of similar, same but different. Yeah. Texas has taken a stance on hemp. He obviously vetoed that, but he only vetoed it. I mean, I believe because he's sending it back to the legislators to make something a bit more watertight. I think ill-informed media think otherwise. How is this going to balance out in the current political climate that's coming out of Washington, where the shilly-shallying is even more than Biden's shilly-shallying? Because at least with him, it was slow and steady, and if I got back in or a Democrat got back in, we would process it for an 8-year period or a 5-year period, and something would happen that wouldn't be perfect, but it would happen. But with this administration and whatever follows it, whatever that is, it's entirely spurious and depends on whether a certain core of people are going to make themselves a lot of money as to whether bills are signed. I mean, it's a sad fact, but that's where we are in politics these days, isn't it?
That's exactly right. And they did a great job last time of trying to pay the right people. They had a nonprofit group called Minority for Medical Marijuana, and I actually sat on a board with the law chapter of Florida A&M University, and was able to kind of educate them a little bit, reminding them that even in recreational states, minorities still go to jail 4 to 1 over white folks. reminding them that decriminalization and recreational, those two words are not synonymous. And as I'm telling them these things, they're just like, what? Wait. And yeah, it's and another thing is in Florida, they say that if we go recreational, the money's going to go to the schools and the police departments.
It always goes to the police department.
Well, not if I get in office. Okay. I'm going to create legislation to where that money will go to affordable housing. Of Habitat for Humanity. That's an international, right? We used to build 200 houses a year in Jacksonville under Habitat for Humanity. We made a tremendous impact. I want to fund Habitat for Humanity. And if you said you lived in the state, so about our taxes as far as it goes with real estate taxes.
I certainly do.
Yeah.
And I mean, and this was from Colorado in the very beginning. This was the discussion. Sure. It would go towards school. It would go to, but you find over time that very quietly amendments are made to that legislation, passed at midnight, and the money is being funneled into quite bizarre places.
Of course.
Basically just to preserve political arrangements that were there in the past.
Yeah. Well, I think affordable housing is a huge issue. Okay. As we know, middle class is having a hard time buying a home in Florida, due to the taxes. And of course, we've got people in the lower echelon who don't have a home at all, who are having to live in projects or what have you. I've seen what happens when 200 homes are being built in a year for low income families. In addition to that, so how that tax works, I'll tell you real quick how that the tax worked back in the day whenever we were able to build 200 homes a year. What was happening is if you were a company at the time, years ago when we were building that many, it was $50,000 for a Habitat for Humanity house in Jacksonville. So if you were a corporation, say Blue Cross and Blue Shield, right? You could write a $50,000 check today to Habitat for Humanity. Tomorrow you get a credit from the state for $50,000. But you got all this free PR when the houses were built. You're out there with the news media and all that. So I want to bring that back.
I presume money into cannabis and other drug use and health and education. I mean, because that Americans use drugs like there's no tomorrow, and the lack of education, whether they're legal, prescription, illegal, decriminal, so. But I mean, it's a really big issue in the US is drug use of any sort and education, because there's just none, is there?
That's exactly right. And that's another thing that, listen, I'm not going to come out and beat cannabis is dangerous. I'm certainly not going to go in that direction, but we do have cannabis hyperemesis syndrome. Okay.
And if you produce things at 85% THC, or you're creating new types of psychedelics that are about to come online, which the Republicans are very happy to throw. Yeah. Think they can. I think you're just creating another layer of danger. No problem with introducing these things, but common sense, education, health, common sense, education, all three together so when people actually use them, they know why they're using them.
Right. Oh yeah. And who probably are the most dangerous folks are the uneducated folks with MD behind their name who get on LinkedIn to claim to be experts.
There's plenty of those. Yes, there's plenty of those.
Listen, I mean,
and they're always, they're podiatrists or dentists. I mean, they shouldn't be in the conversation, should they?
But I have patients that'll come in and say, well, my doctor said I should look into this, but I shouldn't smoke it. I said, well, let me teach you some things to teach your doctor. Okay. First of all, you can take an edible and you're never really going to know how that thing's going to hit. And if you take that and think you're going to drive down the highway, it could hit you in a way that you and your life and everybody around you could
be hit as well.
When you inhale flower, it only lasts 2 hours. And I had this conversation with Trulieve's doctor, and I said, "Okay, doc, You don't have to believe me. You're the one with MD behind your name. Head down there to the ER department. Ask them when they come in for cannabis overdose.
Are they seriously hiring guys who
Yeah.
are they just
Oh yeah,
are they just but I'm worried that they're hiring guys. Yeah,
yeah.
I understand they're hiring guys who have the knowledge and then they lie because that's their job.
No,
But
they don't have the knowledge.
are they also stupid and they're lying to them? They're not even lying to themselves. They just don't have the knowledge.
That's exactly right. And instead of going and learning the knowledge, they just, with their MD behind their name, want to argue with you. Well, smoking's really not a good thing. Well, let me tell you something. Okay, if you smoke a joint and it lasts 2 hours, you're probably going to be okay. But you eat an edible and head on a 4-hour road trip, you could be killing somebody. And this is this is the conversation I had with their doctor. I said, listen, I could peddle bro science all day long, and it's not that big a deal. You got MD behind your name. You have a responsibility to not be an idiot, right? When it talks about medical things, but they're all, look at me, I'm an MD, and I got, you didn't learn anything in med school about the endocannabinoid system. Just break it down.
Look, I was talking to a cannabis doctor exactly about this in New York last week, and he's like you. He's running on his own, and he's almost given up trying to talk to the rest of the profession, and hopes that just thinks the only way that really these things will sort themselves out is time, and time and culture.
Yeah, yeah. And what's frustrating is, there are some wonderful, as you know, there's some wonderful doctors out there who have done the deep dive and have educated themselves. And when you combine that med school education with your deep dive into cannabis, you are dynamite.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, it's like, let's not, doctors are smart people. I grew up in a medical household, but I think that too many doctors, the way that they're trained in the 21st century, ego, or what you call bro science, it plays too much of a part. I grew up in a household where ego, you don't apply the word ego to the word doctor. That's what the Hippocratic Oath is all about, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that's what I tell them all the time. And I don't know. I've been around a lot of doctors in my time, as we all had. You grew up in the household, okay, but I don't know. I don't want to be ugly, but I feel like the guy who didn't get laid in high school might become a doctor.
That's always the way. Well, look, we're almost out of time.
Okay, I sure appreciate you, sir.
Well, thank you very much for being on the Karma Koala podcast. And I wish I could have provided a bit more structure for you in this conversation, but I do think it explains the mess we're in and how I've been seeing Florida from the outside. The way that you talk about it, and the way that we've had this conversation explains exactly what heap of a mess we're in. And
it's worse on the inside.
Yeah, and clear thinking really needs to come into play, but will it come into play? We don't know.
No, sir. I don't believe it will. My guess is they're going to keep trying to compete with the black market. They did this thing a while back called an override. Have you heard that term as an override? I haven't. So patients are allotted 2.5 ounces of flower every 35 days. However, they came out with a new law a few years ago saying, hey, your doctor can do an override. There's doctors giving patients 10 ounces of flower every 35 days. Now, I don't give a rip. I'm not the cannabis police. But I mean, if that ain't,
how do you consume? I mean, are you a horse and you're just eating it? I mean, that's
no, you're selling it. You're a drug dealer. Why would you wait for the